Amir had always been a man of routine. His work as an accountant kept him busy, and his days followed a steady pattern. Every morning, he left home at exactly 8:15, reached the office by 9, and came back home at around 6 in the evening. It was a comfortable rhythm, one that gave his life a sense of order. His wife Zara also appreciated the stability, or at least that's what he believed. That Tuesday morning had started like any other. Amir left for work, kissed his mother Sophia on the cheek, and gave Zara a smile before stepping out. He didn't think much about the fact that his mother and wife had been spending a lot of time together lately. Sophia, a gentle and soft-spoken woman in her mid-60s, had moved in with them a few months ago after a sudden illness made it difficult for her to live alone. Amir thought it was a blessing. The two most important women in his life sharing a home, looking after each other. At work, the day moved faster than usual. A big client meeting that had been scheduled for the afternoon got canceled at the last minute. His manager told him he could leave early if he wanted. Most days, Amir would have stayed and caught up on paperwork. But that day, he felt a sudden urge to go home. He thought it might be nice to surprise Zara and his mother. Maybe they could have tea together before the evening traffic started. He left the office a little after 4:30, the sun still bright in the sky. The city streets were quieter than they usually were during rush hour. Amir drove home without the usual long line of cars. He didn't call ahead, he wanted the moment to be a surprise. In his mind, he pictured his mother and Zara in the living room, maybe watching TV or talking in the kitchen. He imagined walking in, the look of pleasant surprise on their faces, and how they'd all share an early evening snack together. When Amir pulled into the driveway, he noticed the curtains on. The upstairs window were closed. It struck him as odd. Usually the upstairs stayed bright until evening. Still, he brushed it off, thinking maybe they were resting or enjoying a quiet moment. He stepped out of the car, locked it quietly, and walked to the front door. The house was unusually silent when he stepped inside. Normally the smell of cooking or the sound of the TV greeted him. But that day, the air felt still. The only sound was the faint creak of footsteps above him. Amir slipped off his shoes, careful not to make too much noise. He wanted to see what they were doing without them knowing he was home. Maybe he could playfully sneak up and give them a little scare. But as he placed his briefcase by the door, something caught his attention. A muffled voice, then another. The tone was sharper than casual conversation. One of the voices was his mother's, and she sounded distressed. He frowned and took a few steps toward the staircase. The words weren't clear yet, but the sound of tension was unmistakable. He heard his mother say something like, "Please, don't." Her voice was shaking. The sound made Amir's heart skip a beat. He froze for a moment, unsure if he had heard it right. Then, another sound, the low, urgent tone of Zara's voice. He couldn't make out the exact words. There was an edge to it. Amir began to climb the stairs, moving quickly, but quietly. His mind was racing. What could be happening? Were they arguing? Why would his mother sound so afraid? As he reached halfway up, he could hear them more clearly now. His mother's voice was pleading, and Zara's was firm, almost angry. The hallway. At the top of the stairs was dim, the curtains blocking the evening light. As Amir's foot reached the final step, he turned his head toward the sound, and that was when the world seemed to slow down, just a few feet away. His mother was standing dangerously close to the staircase railing. Her hand gripped the side, as if trying to steady herself. Zara was right beside her, her hands outstretched in a way that made Amir's stomach twist. In a single motion, Zara pushed forward, her hands pressing against Sophia's shoulder. It happened so fast that Amir barely had time to think. Sophia's body tilted, her feet slipping. Her hands flailed for the railing, searching for balance. Amir's eyes widened in shock, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. Instinct took over. He lunged forward. In those 2 or 3 seconds, a flood of thoughts rushed through Amir's mind. Disbelief, confusion, fear. His brain couldn't process why his wife would be doing this. But he knew one thing for certain. If he didn't act, his mother would fall. His hand shot out and caught Sophia's arm just as her foot left the step. The sudden weight pulled at his shoulder, but he held on, bracing himself against the wall. With effort, He pulled her back onto the landing, his breath coming in quick, shallow bursts. For a moment, the three of them just stood there, frozen. Amir still holding his mother's arm, Sophia clutching the railing with both hands, and Zara staring at them with wide eyes. The air was thick with a silence that seemed to press against Amir's ears. Sophia's face was pale, her eyes glistening with fear. Amir could feel her arm trembling under his grip, turned his gaze toward Zara, his mind scrambling to understand what he had just witnessed. But before he could say anything, Zara's expression shifted, tension in her jaw loosened, and she tried to force a small, nervous smile. She tripped, Zara said quickly, her voice a little too fast, too rehearsed. I was trying to help her. Amir didn't reply. His mind was still replaying the scene, the position of Zara's hands, the way his mother had been off balance, the fear in her voice before it happened. Nothing about it felt like an accident. His mother opened her mouth, but no words came out. She simply looked at Amir with a mix of relief and helplessness. Amir gently guided her to the small couch in the hallway, helping her sit down. His own breathing was heavy now, his pulse still racing. He wanted to ask questions, but his thoughts were tangled. Part of him wanted to believe Zara's explanation, to hope this was a misunderstanding. But the image of her pushing Sophia toward the stairs was burned into his mind. Zara stood a few feet away, her hands clasped together. She avoided meeting Amir's eyes, looking instead at the floor. The silence stretched between them, each second, making the air feel heavier. Amir's surprise. Homecoming had taken a turn he never could have imagined. Instead of shared tea and laughter, he was left with a question that chilled him. Had he just seen the true side of the woman he married? Moment, unplanned and unexpected, would become the line that divided the life Amir thought he had from the reality that was about to unfold. Amir's legs felt heavy as he stood there, still trying to catch his breath from pulling his mother back to safety. The scene replayed in his mind again and again, like a broken film. He wanted to believe he had misunderstood, that maybe it had really been an accident, but the image of Zara's hands pushing forward was too clear. He couldn't erase it. Sophia sat on the small couch in the hallway, her hands still trembling slightly. Amir knelt beside her, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "Are you okay, Mama?" he asked softly, searching her face for any signs of pain. She nodded, though her eyes told a different story. They were wide, unsettled, and filled with something deeper than just fear from a near fall. "I'm fine," she whispered, though her voice was not convincing. Her grip on his hand tightened for a brief second, almost as if she was trying to say something without words. Amir wanted to ask her more, but his attention shifted when Zara took a step forward. "She tripped," Zara said again, her tone now more firm, as if repeating it would make it true. "I was right there. I tried to stop her from falling." Amir turned his head slowly toward her. Her face had a look of controlled calmness, but he could see the tension in her jaw. Something about the way she avoided looking at him made his chest tighten. "I saw what happened," Amir replied quietly, his voice low but steady. "I came up the stairs. I was right there." Zara's lips pressed together for a moment before she let out a short laugh, one that didn't sound genuine. "Then you—" "No, it was an accident," she said quickly. "What? Why would I ever hurt her?" Amir didn't answer right away. His mind was split between disbelief and the need to protect his mother. He stood up, his eyes still on Zara. The air between them felt heavy, charged with unspoken questions. "I think we should all calm down," he said finally, not wanting to argue in front of his mother. "Mama needs to rest." He helped Sophia stand and guided her slowly toward her bedroom. She walked carefully, holding onto his arm, her steps small and deliberate. Once inside, he made sure she sat on the bed and brought her a glass of water from the kitchen. She drank a little, her eyes downcast. Amir leaned down, speaking in a soft tone so only she could hear. "Mama, tell me the truth. What happened? Before I came home?" Sophia hesitated. Her eyes glistened as she looked up at him. For a second, she opened her mouth, then stopped herself. She shook her head gently. "Not now, Amir," she said quietly. "Please, not now." He wanted to press her, but the weariness in her face stopped him. She needed rest more than questions at that moment. He patted her hand gently and told her he'd check on her soon. When Amir stepped back into the hallway, Zara was leaning against the wall, her arms folded. She looked at him with a mixture of defensiveness and frustration. "You're acting like I pushed her on purpose," she said sharply. "I didn't." Amir kept his voice calm. "It's not about what I think right now. It's about what I saw. And what I saw didn't look like an accident." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Maybe you didn't see it clearly. You just walked in. You don't know what happened before." That last sentence caught Amir's attention. She was right. He didn't know what had happened earlier. That thought made him uneasy. What could have led to such a moment? He didn't remember ever seeing his mother and wife in open conflict before. "I don't know," Amir admitted, "but I do know my mother is shaken, and I know I've never seen her that frightened in her own home." Zara sighed and uncrossed her arms. "She's been difficult lately, always making small comments, telling me how to run the house. I've tried to be patient, Amir, but she treats me like I'm a guest here." Amir felt a mix of emotions rising inside him. He knew living together could cause tension, but this, what he had just witnessed, was not normal household disagreement. "Even if you're upset," he said slowly, "there is no reason for things to get physical. None." Zara's eyes flickered with something, maybe guilt, maybe irritation, but she didn't respond. She simply walked past him and went into their bedroom. Closing the door firmly behind her, the house fell into a strange silence. Amir stood in the hallway for a moment, listening to the muted sounds of his mother moving in her room and the faint creak of the floorboards where Zara had walked. He felt like a stranger in his own home, caught between two worlds, the woman who raised him and the woman he had chosen to marry. After a while, Amir returned to check on Sophia. She was lying on her side, resting, but her eyes opened when she heard him enter. "I'm fine," she repeated, though she looked anything but fine. He sat on the edge of the bed and told her to let him know if she needed anything. The hours after that passed slowly. Amir reheated some food for his mother and left a plate outside the bedroom for Zara, who didn't come out. His own appetite was gone. He sat in the living room, staring at the muted television, his mind circling the same questions. Why had Zara's tone been so sharp when she spoke to his mother? Why had his mother looked so scared? Why wouldn't she talk about it? And why did Zara seem more concerned about defending herself than showing any worry for Sophia's well-being? By the time night fell, Amir knew one thing for certain. This wasn't just a small misunderstanding. Something was going on between them that he hadn't seen before. And whatever it was, it had almost ended in disaster. When he finally went to bed, Zara was lying on her side, facing away from him. He lay down quietly, his eyes on the ceiling, listening to the sound of the clock ticking in the dark. His thoughts were restless, and deep inside, he knew that the events of that afternoon were only the beginning of something. It's much bigger and much more troubling than he had ever imagined. Amir woke up the next morning feeling as though the events of the previous day had been part of a strange dream. But as soon as his eyes opened and his mind began to replay the scene of his mother leaning dangerously toward the stairs, the uneasy feeling returned. It hadn't been a dream. It had been real, painfully real. He lay in bed for a few minutes, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint sounds of movement in the kitchen. The quiet clink of dishes told him Zara was awake. He glanced at the clock. It was earlier than usual for her to be up. That, too, felt strange. Amir got out of bed, washed his face, and stepped into the hallway. The smell of breakfast was faint, but the air in the house still felt heavy, as though the tension from yesterday hadn't lifted overnight. He walked past his mother's room and saw the door slightly open. Peeking in, he found her sitting on the bed, adjusting her shawl. She looked up and smiled faintly when she saw him, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Good morning, Mama," Amir said softly, stepping inside. "Good morning, my son," she replied. Her voice was calm, but there was a trace of tiredness in it. Amir sat beside her. "How are you feeling today?" "Fine," she said, but again he could tell it wasn't the full truth. He hesitated, then decided it was time to ask her the question he had been holding back. "Mama, please, tell me what happened yesterday before I came home. I need to understand." Sophia's hands fidgeted with the edge of her shawl. For a long moment she didn't speak. Then, with a quiet sigh, she said, "Amir, I didn't want to worry you, but things have not been peaceful here." Amir leaned forward. "What do you mean?" "She has been unkind," Sophia said carefully. "At first it was small things. She would ignore me when I spoke or make little comments about how I do things. Then she began telling me to stay in my room, saying the house feels crowded. I thought maybe she was just adjusting to having me here. But lately," Sophia paused and looked away. "Lately, she has been speaking to me in a way that feels sharp. And yesterday, she was upset because I entered the kitchen while she was cooking. She said I was interfering. I tried to explain I was just making tea, but she wouldn't listen. And then, her voice faltered. She came close to me while I was standing near the stairs and she pushed." The words hit Amir like a cold wave. Hearing it from his mother's own mouth left no space for denial. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" he asked gently. Sophia's eyes softened. "My son, and I didn't want to bring trouble between you and your wife. I thought I could handle it myself. But yesterday, I realized it had gone too far." Amir's mind swirled with anger, confusion, and sadness. He knew he couldn't ignore this. Standing up, he told his mother, "I will talk to her. This can't happen again." He walked out of the room and found Zara in the kitchen, slicing bread. She looked up when he entered, her expression unreadable. "Good morning," she said flatly. Amir didn't waste time. "We need to talk," he said. Zara placed the knife down slowly and leaned against the counter. "About yesterday?" "Yes," Amir replied firmly. "I spoke to my mother. I know what happened before I came home. She told me everything." Zara's brows furrowed. "And of course you believe her completely," she said with a hint of sarcasm. Amir's tone remained steady. "What I saw with my own eyes, and now I know the full story. This is not just about one moment. This has been building for weeks." Zara crossed her arms. "Your mother has been making my life difficult since she moved in. She treats me like I don't know how to take care of my own home. She corrects me. She watches everything I do. And she acts like she's the only one who knows what's best for you." Amir took a breath. "Even if you feel that way, nothing justifies what happened yesterday. You could have walked away, or we could have talked about it together. You chose to let it get physical." Zara's eyes flashed. "I didn't push her to hurt her. She was in my space, and I just wanted her to move. It wasn't like you're imagining." Amir shook his head slowly. "It's not about imagination. It was there. I saw enough to know she was in danger." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The sound of the clock ticking in the living room filled the silence. Finally, Amir said, "Zara, I need you to understand that my mother's safety is not negotiable. If you can't treat her with respect, then we have a bigger problem than just yesterday." Zara's arms dropped to her sides. "Wait. So what are you saying, that I'm the villain here? That you'll take her side no matter what?" Amir's voice softened, but his words were firm. "I'm saying that I cannot and will not allow anyone, no matter who they are, to harm my mother. If we're going to live together in this house, there has to be respect. Without that, we can't move forward." Zara looked away, her lips pressed together. She didn't argue, but she also didn't apologize. That silence spoke louder than any words. Amir stepped back and left the kitchen, his mind heavy with the weight of what had just been said. He knew this conversation was only the beginning. Something in Zara's demeanor told him she didn't truly accept responsibility for her actions. And if that was the case, he needed to think seriously about what came next. Later in the day, Amir stayed close to his mother, keeping an eye on her while she rested. He tried to act normal, but deep down, he knew things had changed in a way that could not be undone. The trust he once had in his marriage now felt cracked, and the warmth he had hoped his wife and mother would share seemed farther away than ever. By the evening, Amir sat alone in the living room, the weight of his decisions pressing down on him. He thought about his mother's quiet dignity, her effort to keep the peace even while feeling unwelcome in her own son's home. He thought about Zara's defensive tone, her refusal to show remorse. And he thought about the moment at the stairs, the moment that had almost ended in disaster. He knew he would have to make a choice soon, one that might change everything in his life. And as the night grew quiet, Amir realized that the confrontation that had begun today was only the first step toward a decision that could no longer be avoided. Amir sat in the living room long after the evening news had finished, the television screen now dark. The soft hum of the ceiling fan was the only sound in the house. He leaned back on the couch, staring at the shadows on the wall, his thoughts restless. His mother was already asleep in her room, and Zara had gone to bed early, without saying much. The silence between him and his wife had become heavier since their conversation that morning. He knew he couldn't ignore what had happened. The image of his mother swaying dangerously close to the stairs was still fresh in his mind, and the thought of what could have happened made his chest tighten. It wasn't just about that single moment anymore. It was about trust, safety, and respect inside his own home. The next morning, Amir woke before sunrise. He sat at the dining table with a cup of tea, watching the first light touch the garden outside. He didn't want to start the day with tension, but he also knew avoiding the problem would only make it worse. By the time Zara came into the kitchen, he had already decided to speak clearly and firmly. "Zara," he said as she opened the fridge. She turned to look at him, her face calm but distant. "Yes. We need to decide how to move forward from here," Amir said. "I can't just pretend nothing happened. My mother doesn't feel safe, and I need to protect her." Zara's eyes narrowed slightly. "And how do you plan to do that? Send me away." Amir shook his head slowly. "I'm asking you to take some time away from the house, just for a few days. It will give us space to think, and it will give Mama a chance to feel calm again." Zara's lips tightened. "So that's your solution? You believe her version of events, and I'm the one who has to leave?" "I believe what I saw," Amir replied evenly. "I'm not saying this to punish you. I'm saying it because I need to be sure nothing like this can happen again. You staying somewhere else for a few days will help both of us see things more clearly." Zara crossed her arms, clearly unhappy. But after a long pause, she said, "Fine, if that's what you want." Her tone was cold, but there was no argument in it. Amir didn't respond to the tone. He simply nodded. "Thank you. I'll help arrange for you to stay at your cousin's place for a few days." Later that afternoon, Zara packed a small bag. Without much conversation, Amir helped carry it to the car. Before she left, she turned to him and said, "You're making a big mistake by letting her control this house." Then she got in and drove away. When the car disappeared from view, Amir felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. He had loved Zara deeply once, but the gap between them now felt wide. He didn't know if it could be repaired. Back inside, Amir checked on his mother. She was sitting in the living room, knitting quietly. When he told her Zara had gone to stay with her cousin for a few days, Sophia looked up and gave him a small nod. "I didn't want it to come to this," she said softly. "No," Amir replied, sitting beside her. "But I couldn't take any chances. Your safety comes first." For the next 2 days, the house was peaceful. Sophia moved around freely without the tension that had been there before. Amir cooked for them both, and in the evenings they sat together, watching television. But in Amir's mind, the issue wasn't gone. He needed to decide if this was something that could be solved, or if it was the beginning of a deeper separation from Zara. On the 3rd day, Amir called his sister Nadia and told her everything. She listened quietly before speaking. "Amir, I'm glad you were there that day, but you need to think about the future." "Yes." "If Zara can't respect Mama, this will keep happening in one way or another, I know," Amir said. "That's why I'm thinking of having Mama stay with you for a while, at least until I figure things out." "That's a good idea," Nadia agreed. "Bring her here. She'll be comfortable, and you can have the space you need to decide that evening." Amir gently told his mother the plan. At first, she hesitated, not wanting to feel like she was being sent away. But when he explained that it was for her comfort and safety, she agreed. "I trust your judgment," she said quietly. The next morning, Amir drove his mother to Nadia's home. His sister welcomed her warmly, making sure she had a comfortable room. Seeing his mother smile for the first time in days gave Amir a sense of reassurance. But now came the harder part, facing Zara. When Amir returned home later that day,
Oh,
Zara was already back.
oh.
She was sitting in the living room, scrolling through her phone. She looked up when he entered. "So, did you enjoy your quiet time?" she asked, her voice carrying a hint of sarcasm. Amir ignored the tone and sat down across from her. "Mama is staying with Nadia for now. It gives us the space to talk about what happened and where we go from here." Zara put her phone down. "And what exactly do you expect from me?" "I expect honesty," Amir said simply. "And I expect you to take responsibility for your actions. If you can admit that things got out of hand and truly try to make peace with Mama, we might have a chance to fix this. But if you keep denying what happened, I don't see how we can move forward." Zara was silent for a long time. Her gaze shifted away from him, and for the first time, Amir thought he saw something softer in her expression. But when she spoke, her words were guarded. "I don't know if things can go back to how they were." "Neither do I," Amir admitted. "But I know that without respect in this house, there is no future for us." The conversation ended there, but the meaning behind it was clear. Amir had drawn a line, and whether Zara chose to step back from it or cross it again would decide the fate of their marriage. That night, as Amir lay in bed, the house felt quieter than it had in months. He didn't know what the coming weeks would bring, but he knew he had made the right choice for now. Protecting his mother had been the priority, and he would never regret that. Still, in the quiet darkness, he couldn't help but wonder, was this the first step toward healing, or the beginning of the end? Amir woke early the next morning, the weight of everything that had happened pressing down on him. The house felt different now, quieter in some ways, but heavier in others. His mother was staying with his sister Nadia, and Zara was back home. But the distance between them seemed larger than ever. He sat at the kitchen table, sipping his tea slowly, trying to collect his thoughts. He knew that things could not go back to how they were before. The trust he once had was broken. The image of Zara, pushing his mother near the stairs, stayed in his mind like a shadow he could not shake. Amir had always believed in keeping peace in the family, but now he understood that some things needed to be faced, no matter how difficult. That day, Amir decided to visit his mother at Nadia's house. When he arrived, he found Sophia sitting comfortably in the living room, wrapped in a soft blanket. She looked up and smiled gently when she saw him. "Hello, Amir," she said softly. "Hello?" "Mama," Amir replied, taking a seat beside her. "How are you feeling?" Sophia sighed quietly. "Better here." "Nadia is kind and the house is calm." Amir nodded, glad to see her relaxed. "I'm sorry it had to be like this." Sophia shook her head. "Don't be sorry. I know you are doing what's right." They talked quietly for a while, sharing small moments of comfort. Amir felt a mixture of relief and sadness. He missed having his mother at home, but he also knew that this arrangement was best for now. Later that week, Amir sat down with Zara to talk honestly about their future. The tension between them was still strong, but he believed that clarity was important. "Zara," he began, "we need to decide what comes next. I can't have my mother feeling unsafe in her own home. That's not something I can accept." Zara looked tired, her eyes soft but guarded. "I know," she said quietly. "I don't want to hurt her. I'm sorry." Amir nodded slowly. "I want to believe you. But sorry's not enough if the same things keep happening." They spoke for a long time, about their feelings, frustrations, and hopes. Zara admitted that living together had been harder than she expected, but she wanted to try to make things better. Amir agreed that they should seek help, maybe family, counseling, or mediation, to rebuild trust. Over the next few weeks, Zara made efforts to change. She was more patient with Sophia, and slowly, the two women began to find moments of peace. Amir watched the small changes with hope, but he remained cautious. He knew healing takes time. One afternoon, Amir visited his mother again. Sophia smiled warmly when she saw him, and for the first time since the incident, she seemed truly at ease. "Thank you for standing up for me, Amir," she said softly. "You are my mother," Amir replied firmly. "Protecting you is my duty." That evening, as Amir returned home, he felt a quiet strength inside himself. The journey ahead would not be easy, but he was ready to face it. He wanted a home filled with respect and kindness, a home where his mother could feel safe and his marriage could be honest. The past weeks had tested him in ways he never imagined. But through it all, Amir learned that sometimes the hardest choices are the ones that protect the people we love most. As he settled into bed that night, Amir felt a sense of calm. The road was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, he believed in the possibility of healing.